Hi, my name is Katrina Branscombe, and this is my presentation on juvenile delinquency. Juvenile delinquency is when a minor commits a criminal act. This usually happens when a child is in their adolescent stage, which is the in-between of being a kid and being an adult, also known as a teenager. This is about the ages of 12 to 18. There are many ways that somebody can partake in delinquency. It's when somebody violates the law or an ordinance. An ordinance is something like violating curfew, running away, or drinking alcohol under the age of 21. Juvenile courts also depend on the jurisdiction, and they vary from state to state. Delinquent behavior develops from social and structural conditions. So depending on where a child is living and the social nature that they are in is when delinquency usually occurs. There are many theories on why juveniles go into and commit acts of delinquency. One of them is that they are fully aware that they are committing crimes. So this is called the rational choice theories, and it was originally developed in the classical schools that was established in 1800. This is where, theorists think that juveniles are committing these crimes out of their own free will and are completely aware of what they are doing. Another theory is biological positivism, which is where people think that it is genetically in their blood and malfunction. This is something that I personally do not agree with because I believe it's a nature versus nurture situation. I was born crack cocaine addicted and I am not a delinquent, so therefore it's not in my biological makeup. However, I believe if I was not adopted and I was in the home that I was born with, is subject to change because there's drugs around the house and it was seen as a positive thing. Psychological positivism corresponds with the emotion. So kids who have ADHD, learning disabilities, OCD, like kids who have emotional buildups are more likely to commit crimes. Are important because that's where our children spend most of their time besides home. This is where they first establish their friends and they start getting introduced to peers. Bullying occurs a lot in school, whether it's cyberbullying, direct bullying, like pushing and teasing, or indirect bullying as outcasting somebody. Bullying can cause depression, which can lead into suicide, or even worse, it can spiral into what is now one of the world's biggest topics, which is school shootings. Bullying needs to be avoided, and we need to look at what the causes are. Another importance of school is the academic performance of the child. If a student tends to have low academic performance, that can be associated with delinquency because they'll start finding like-minded groups to be with, and they'll start taking their anger out on their school with the groups and do like substance abuse and all of those other delinquent behaviors. The school can contribute to a student's alienation and needs to be aware of that. Schools can attempt to deter delinquency by setting forth programs. Classroom engagement is a good way to get kids engaged with the school and get their interest back on track. Mentoring students is another way to deal with trying to get them back on track. Making school more enjoyable is another way to keep kids in school and keep their attention on school instead of trying to commit other crimes. A juvenile's first influence come from their parents and their home. It's where they were born. So kids who have parents that are in and out of the justice system, or who have drugs around the house, or who are apted to alcohol and substance abuse, are more likely to become like their parents because it's been seen as a socially acceptable behavior. Also, kids that are abused, either physically or sexually, kids that are like the attention's not on them, parents could care less about them, they tend to try and find the attention and the support they need in other places. So they'll start getting into gangs, they'll start getting into kids who are committing delinquent behavior, start finding drugs as a good way of having a support system because it makes them numb. So there are a lot of things that the homes and the parents can do to influence their kids to become a delinquent. Same thing with schools and peers. We talked about this a little in the last presentation, or in the last slide. Kids fall into peer pressure. They wanna be cool. They wanna fit in. They wanna commit, like they wanna gain social status when they're in their school. They wanna feel accepted. And the way to do that is to give in to what other kids are telling them. So, hey, drugs are cool. They'll start doing drugs. Same thing with the academic struggles. Once they fall deep into academic struggles, they might start finding kids with the like-minded thoughts as they are and start feeling as if they are dumb and worthless and start getting it there. Academic failure can also cause kids to drop out of school, which can lead them to get a low-income job and lead them back into poverty, which ultimately can root back into delinquency. There are many stages of the juvenile court proceedings. Juvenile court was founded on the ideals that the court should give the same discipline and supervision that a good parent would, and that the court's goal was to guide, restore, and forgive instead of treating youths like criminals. That the only rights juveniles are entitled to is that the court must provide proper guardianship, protection, and shelter to the youth. When a juvenile is arrested, they are originally given a detention hearing. Here in Florida, I believe DJJ, which is the Department of Juvenile Justice, scores these kids on a point system, and then determines whether they should be incarcerated or given a home detention or sent back home. This is the same thing as an intake procedure. It might not be the jail doing it, but it is an intake officer somewhere. The one in Punta Gorda, where I live, the intake facility is in Fort Myers, so Fort Myers is giving us the here right here. After the detention hearing starts coming, the trial stages. The adjudicatory hearing is the same thing as an adult adjudicatory hearing, which is where the plea is entered, where you find facts about the case, the presentation of evidence, the cross-examine, and the judge's verdict. Once the judge has given his verdict, the next stage is the disposition hearing, or the sentencing hearing. This is where the judge wants to decide whether they want to incarcerate the child or give them a judicial alternative. Judicial alternatives are probation, dismissal of the case, restitution, outpatient and psychiatric therapy, foster home placement, day treatment programs, community-based residential programs. The whole point of the juvenile justice system is not to punish, but to try and rehabilitate these juveniles into law-abiding adults. There are many advantages and disadvantages of incarceration. Some of the advantages are that recidivism rates go down. They learn something. It holds them accountable for their actions. Detention centers are actually still horrible in juvenile facilities. It's cold, it's dark, it's grim. But there are some incarceration facilities that do help juveniles. Boot camps is on the fence. I think it depends on the boot camp they're sentenced to. There has been a lot of issues with boot camps, including juveniles dying. But boot camps give juveniles a place to get physical and military training. And It kind of puts them into like a discipline kind of mode. Ranges and wilderness camps are for minimum offenders. It allows them to do conservation works on parks, cutting grass and weeds, and gives them a sense of work ethic. It also gives them a chance to interact with social workers, group therapy, and will occasionally let them go home to visit their parents. It lets them go into towns to make purchases and give them a sense of that kind of feeling, and to attend community events. There are many types of juvenile rehabilitative programs. The first one is probation. Probation is not for everyone because it is easy to violate, but however, probation sets certain conditions by the state and by the court that they must follow. It gives them various programs such as restitution programs, work crews, mentoring programs, and teen and drug courts to try and get them to go back into the community and integrate them back within the community. House arrest is another form of probation that is monitored by electronic monitoring. They are allowed out for school but need to be back in by a curfew and aren't allowed outside of a perimeter. Day treatment programs are where they go and get the programs that they need during the day and then go home at night and then return back the next day. Group homes hold about 8 to 12 juveniles. It's not the same as a foster home, but it gives parents a chance to participate. It helps with family conflicts. It gives peer interaction, and it makes them confront their problems in front of a group setting. That is all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.